Many students have great ideas, but have trouble expressing them on paper. In our three-part writing program, we teach students how to take those great ideas and organize them well on paper in the form of paragraphs and essays. There are three parts to our writing program: simple paragraphs, extended paragraphs, and 5-paragraph essays. Let's start with simple paragraphs. With simple paragraphs, we start out by teaching students that whenever we write, first we should brainstorm, then we should write, and then we always go back and self-check our work. We go into different strategies for how to go about doing so. Let's take a look inside the book. Immediately on page 1, those 3 steps that I just mentioned, brainstorm, write, and self-check, are initially written in the bottom. It's important that students ingrain these 3 concepts in their minds, since it's something that we continue to reinforce. Next, we ask the question, what is a simple paragraph? Well, a simple paragraph is made of 5 sentences. We have our topic sentence, 3 detail sentences, and our conclusion sentence. For example, there are many different flavors of ice cream. There is vanilla, there is rocky road, there is chocolate chip cookie dough. I love ice cream. We teach students that they can express their opinions in the conclusion sentence. Now, just to get the hang of what well-structured simple paragraphs look like, we ask students to take out any 3 colored highlighters and look at some models of well-written simple paragraphs. If we take a look at exercise 1.0, it asks the students to read these paragraphs and highlight the entire topic sentence in one color, the 3 detail sentences in another color, and the conclusion sentence in a third color. For those of you who are also using the highlighting series, you might want to use different colors aside from blue, green, and yellow, since sometimes students tend to confuse this exercise with the exercises where we identified the topic, main idea, and important details. Let's take a look at what one student did as part of this exercise. The first sentence reads, "Making lemonade is a fun and easy process." Because that was the topic sentence, the student highlighted that sentence in one color, in this case pink. The next sentences read, "First, gather lemons, sugar, and water. Next, mix together the ingredients. Finally, pour the lemonade into cups and enjoy." Those are the 3 detail sentences. The student chose to highlight those 3 sentences in yellow. And last we have our conclusion sentence. "I can't wait to make lemonade at home." That's our opinion, and that's our conclusion sentence. The student highlighted that sentence in purple. There are several exercises where the students practice just looking at models of well-written simple paragraphs and highlighting the topic sentence in one color, 3 detail sentences in a second color, and conclusion sentence in a third color. Now, if we keep moving through the book and we turn to page 8, we'll notice that section 2 introduces simple example paragraphs. Here we teach students that there are 4 different paragraphs we're going to learn how to write: the example, process, reason, and compare-contrast paragraphs. We start here with the example paragraph. The example paragraph gives examples. The students are given some topics and then asked to come up with some of their own topics. Some of the topics given to write example paragraphs include names of cities, kinds of candy, and ways to have fun during summer. In this case, the student came up with some individual topics: kinds of drinks, breakfast items, emotions, and types of transportation. Then we introduce the concept of brainstorming. If you'd like, at this point, you can take out either a mini or large whiteboard and introduce this brainstorm web on the actual whiteboard rather than just looking into the book. If we notice here, this web diagram has 2 rectangles, one on the top and one on the bottom, and 3 circles in the middle. The student should write out the topic sentence, write in the 3 detail bubbles, and then write out the conclusion sentence. In this case, the topic is about kinds of cookies. Here, the student wrote out the topic sentence. There are many different kinds of cookies you can eat. The 3 detail bubbles: chocolate chip, oatmeal, vanilla cream, and then the conclusion sentence, which is the opinion: I love cookies. Now we learn that each one of these bubbles will become a full sentence when we write. So in this case, the paragraph turns into, there are many different kinds of cookies you can eat. First, there are chocolate chip cookies. Next, you can eat oatmeal cookies. Finally, there are vanilla cream cookies. I love cookies. For the rest of this section, the student is given practice brainstorming and writing different example paragraph topics. In the directions, the student is given the topic to write about. Kinds of candy, winter activities, outdoor games, and meals you can eat for dinner. Note that we have not yet introduced self-checking. That comes in the next section. Starting with section 2B, we introduce our 2 self-checking checklists. Whenever we self-check our work, there are 2 checklists that we use. The first one is called COPS, and the second one is called our organizational checklist. COPS, or C-O-P-S, stands for capitalization. We want to go back and make sure everything was capitalized properly. O is organization, but before the student checks off that O for organization, he or she needs to make sure that every element in the organizational checklist is checked off. Do I have my topic sentence, my 3 details, and my conclusion sentence? If so, I can check off every element of my organizational checklist and also check off that O in COPS. Then we move on to P in COPS, which stands for punctuation. We want to make sure everything was punctuated properly. And finally, S, which is for spelling. We want to check for our spelling errors and then check off the S. Once we've checked off for each of these elements individually, our self-checking has been complete. Now, going forward, every time we write, first we brainstorm, then we write, and then we self-check both with COPS and with our organizational checklist. Now we move into section 3. Here we introduce the second paragraph type, which is the process paragraph. The process paragraph explains the steps involved in a process. The student is given some sample topics to use when writing a process paragraph. These include how to make lemonade, how to prepare breakfast in bed, and how to make Jell-O. Then the student is given some space to come up with his or her own examples of topics that could be used to write a process paragraph. This student came up with how to change a date on a Palm device, how to make a smoothie, how to wash a dog, and how to draw a tree. The student is always shown a model of how to brainstorm, write, and self-check each paragraph type before having to do any on their own. Once the student has looked at the model, they are given ample practice with different topics for how to write process paragraphs, such as how to make pizza, how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how to write a table, and so on. For each of these exercises, the student is expected to brainstorm, write, and then self-check his or her work using those 2 checklists, COPS and the organizational checklist. Once the student has done several practice with the process paragraphs, the book then introduces transition words. Students learn to integrate different transition words such as first, second, third, next, last, and finally into their paragraphs. They are then asked to put a box around each of these transition words to make sure that they're properly integrating them. Now the student is ready to move into the third paragraph type, which is the reason paragraph. A reason paragraph gives reasons, or essentially the student's opinion on a topic. The student is first given some sample topics. For instance, why summer should be longer, why cookies and cream is the best ice cream flavor, and why I love holidays. Then the student comes up with his or her own examples. In this case, the student came up with why winter should be longer, why soccer is a fun sport, why school is important, and why you should eat healthy. Again, there is a model of how to brainstorm, write, and self-check. And then there's a good deal of practice with different topics on how to brainstorm, write, and self-check different paragraphs. Finally, in the last section of the book, the student is introduced to the compare-contrast paragraph, which compares and contrasts 2 things that are alike and different. Again, they are given topics and are given space to come up with some of their own topics. Then they are given ample practice brainstorming, writing, and self-checking different compare and contrast paragraphs. Let's just go through one sample together. Together, we are going to write a paragraph on why summer should be longer. Again, we always start by brainstorming, then we write, and then we go back and self-check our work. Let's start with our brainstorm web. In this case, the student chose to write in the first rectangular box at the top, "There are many reasons why summer should be longer." For the detail bubbles, a student wrote warm weather, spend time with family and friends, and go to beach. And for the conclusion sentence, I love summer. If you'll notice below, when the student converted each of those bubbles into sentences for the paragraph, there were different mistakes that were integrated, which is natural for many students. The student first wrote the paragraph, and then when going back to self-check, fixed each of the mistakes with a different colored pen before checking off the appropriate element in the boxes below. For instance, the student spelled many wrong. The student spelled many, M-N-Y. Therefore, the student corrected that word to use the proper spelling. There was also improper punctuation, improper capitalization, and other spelling mistakes. The checklist at the bottom forced the student to go back and make the proper corrections so that the paragraph now reads in a well-organized and well-written fashion. This book is designed to give students repetition and practice with 4 different paragraph types. It is important that they always brainstorm, write, and self-check their work. The more they practice these paragraphs, the easier it will become, and the more fluid and organized their writing will be.